So ladies, gentlemen of the DC Universe, welcome to a video in where I haven't done this for a while, but we're going over a bunch of DCU rumors. Now, it's very important to stress here that these are completely unverified. These are to be taken with a big grain of salt, or just a grain of salt, whatever you want to say there. And you can kind of look at this as a bit of a discussion series episode, but instead of like me looking at your questions, I'm going to go over this Reddit, or subreddit should I say, the DCU subreddit, not the DCU Leaks one that we've been over before when doing one of these, deep dives into DCU rumors. This one is about half the size of the other Reddit, and here is a Reddit post saying Whisper Corner by Reddit/DCU_. So hello everyone, welcome to Whisper Corner, a new initiative started by this subreddit, home of verified/unverified information received by us through our sources. The reason why I wanted to do it is because it really just gets me talking and speculating based off of these rumors, whether there's some truth to some of them or whether, even all of them are complete BS. But having skimmed through a few of them, I've already got a bunch to say, so I would just say sit back, relax, get some popcorn, because you know me, I can talk for a bit, but also bounce back your own ideas with whatever I have to say, like expand on it. You get the drill by now, so enough of this intro. Go ahead, leave a like on it if you do go on to enjoy, and subscribe for more, not only news videos, but the occasional dedicated rumor/leaky kind of video like this. But number one, they even say, take it with a pinch of salt, and let's dive right into it. Okay, so one thing I know for sure is DCU Batman will be no younger than mid to late 30s, but could be as old as late 40s. No one younger than Glenn Powers being considered for the role. Powers' rising stardom is seen as a plus to help distance this Batman from Pattinson's version, but he will have to audition just like anybody else. This one, I would say a part of this post, it's one of those rumors where it's like, okay, well, this is what we're expecting anyway. I mean, I know some of you aren't, because a lot of you are like, well, you could have Batman start at 17, so he could have been 10, 11, 12 years into being Batman at only 27, 28, 29, when I'm just like, nah, man, I'm telling you, I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm telling you, he's going to be, God, even 35 seems a bit young to me. I've always said like 36 to 38, if anything, with Damian Wayne coming in, as I've rambled a bunch about before. Bruce should be kind of at least in his very, very early 40s, but I can see them bending the chronology of Batman a little bit to maybe make a late 30s Bruce work as well. But those who are saying like, oh yeah, Bruce Wayne's gonna be like 33, only like a year or two older than David Cornsweet's Superman, I just don't know about that. Even though Gunn said, yes, maybe Batman might be a couple of years older, but I can tangent about this all day long. This doesn't really sound like a crazy rumor that they're scooping here in this post, even though, they're fully admitting that this is unverified information alongside potential verified stuff that their sources have told them, just like over on the DCU Leaks Reddit page and where they used to do those posts, and they've been very reliable over there, as you guys know, getting information on all kinds of things, such as lanterns and all kinds of other scoops well before they were even announced, even, Andy Muschietti directing Brave and the Bold and stuff. So I don't know so much about this Reddit, but either way, again, I like to entertain this stuff for the sake of conversation. As I always say here, let's hypothetically entertain it's true. I would agree with this one. I think Batman in the DCU should at the very least be like 30, 37 ish years old, 38 maybe. And they're saying like no one younger than Glenn Powers being considered. So let me double check. I think Glenn Powers, like what, 35? Is he 30? Yeah, he is literally 35. Now, to all of those of you who want Brandon Sklenar, if you were to take this rumor and hypothetically assume it's true for the sake of conversation in this video, well then maybe you'd be out of luck. But then again, you could argue, since Brandon Sklenar is 34 years old, by the time they'd be filming, I think that would be fine. If I'm just, I don't know why I'm saying this, because it's not like we know Brandon Sklenar is going to be a front runner, but I just know there's a lot of you in the comments who'd be like, well, whether this rumor is, completely BS or not, I don't care. He has to be considered one way or the other. I don't know. But like, even if you want to entertain this rumor as being true, which, even source aside here, an unverified claim, as I've been saying, I think Batman will be 35 plus at least. And yes, I do keep in mind in how, as I briefly teased earlier, they could shave a couple of things off, do some things a bit differently, such as, maybe train a Robin or two for a little bit less amount of time to that of what we have established in super traditionalist canon, so that he would be maybe a little bit younger. Like, there's things like that which get suggested to me all the time, and how people are like, well, Boba, he could still be 35 and still have Damian Wayne coming along, right? Especially if he was training in, let's just say, the League of Assassins, and had like a one-night fling with Talia al Ghul before he returned back to Gotham kind of thing, and he never knew she was pregnant. Yep. But 10 years on, let's just say Damian Wayne is going to be 10, 11 years old in The Brave and the Bold. Yeah, that would mean a mid-30s Bruce. So it could work. And I know lots of people would like to point out as well, like, the League of Assassins isn't actually as, biblical canon, if you know what I mean, to Batman's training as what people think. It was more like very, very popularized by what Christopher Nolan did with the League of Shadows. But I think people like the idea of Bruce training with Ra's al Ghul and the League of Assassins, especially when we know we're getting Damian Wayne, because it's such a natural way of a young Bruce Wayne at like 23 or whatever age you want to say, hooking up with Talia, and then unbeknownst to him, he has a son for the next 10 to 11, 12 years, and by the time he meets him in the DCU movie, he could be mid-30s. But there are other ways they can make it work, but I'm already rambling here, and we've got like 11 other points to get to. But no one under 35 does sound something that I would believe, because even if you had a 39-year-old actor cast for the DCU Batman, let's just argue that for a second, he could still play an in-universe 35-year-old Bruce Wayne. Again, you don't have to obsess over the actor's age as much unless they're like 52 in real life. Then it'd be a bit harder to argue if you wanted them to play 36. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, maybe we could be getting a Batman in his 40s, which I still wouldn't hate. A lot of people impulsively really don't like that. Like, no, I want the DCU Batman to be like, no, I don't want like an old, this is like a 10-year plan. We can't have an actor in his go from his 40s to his 50s. He will look really old and wrinkly. But no, I really don't think people have to worry about that as much, especially like if you're a Hollywood actor, you're getting, whoever they cast is probably going to be very good looking, probably doesn't look his age in his 40s. And don't forget that any stunt stuff, serious stunt stuff that happens, no actor does that anyway, or at least, 3/4 of them don't, unless you're named Tom Cruise. So even if they cast somebody 44, 45, 46, and yes, that would mean 10 years in the DCU would make them 56, they probably would look really good for their age. There's many actors out there who look really good for their age, and I'm not even saying they're old in their late 40s, because, I feel like sometimes people forget what being old actually means. But, I've been watching The Foundation recently on Apple TV, and Lee Pace, he looks really, really good, and he's 45 years old. He'll be turning 46, I believe, next March. I'm not saying Lee Pace is my number one. Oh, he has to be DC Batman, but he does kind of have that look of an experienced Batman who's got this Bat family already around him, as we know in the DCU. That's something Gunn and Safran have confirmed, and obviously so if Damian Wayne is already entering the fold. That's the kind of gruff look I want for the DCU Batman. I don't think they should have such a youthful look to them, but at the same time, I don't think they should look like they've been doing this for 40 years either. So either way, let's move on, because, geez, that could have been its own video, really. Number 2 is Booster Gold is more low-key and not as serious as Lanterns and Ruler, so there isn't a push internally to make it an HBO original. So this one's like a no-shite kind of thing. Like, Booster Gold obviously is not going to be as serious as Lanterns. A literal, as described, inspired by True Detective series where they investigate a murder. If you know what I'm talking about there, if you've seen True Detective Season 1 and how that could influence it. Chris Mundy having show-run Ozark, it's very self-explanatory. We have heard from Daniel RPK, a scooper that I mentioned in my previous news roundup, that Waller's going to be a bit darker than perhaps originally planned, because we can't forget how it was originally planned to be a Peacemaker Season 1.5, but some things must have changed a little bit there since Peacemaker Season 2 is now arriving first, and maybe they've now taken the opportunity to be like, oh, we can now make Waller a bit more of its own thing and a bit darker since it's coming after Peacemaker Season 2 anyway. And I'm kind of crossing my fingers for Deathstroke to be involved in that series. But what is interesting about this point is that it actually is something fairly believable to me in how you may have heard recently or over the months that it's been quite a big thing with what they're doing with the Penguin and how that was originally intended for just Max, the streaming service, which was once HBO Max, but it got upgraded to also be an HBO original show. Just because of the quality that show has, they want to give it that prestige, that pedigree to also be called an HBO original. Now, Lanterns, at its very conception here, is already going to be an HBO original, but this doesn't actually mean that every single DCU project is going to be an HBO original. I mean, look at, I don't know, Creature Commandos, or even some live action stuff like Booster Gold might not really be aiming for that. Like, okay, maybe it's like a Max original kind of thing, but it's not also airing on Max, but also an HBO original show. So again, obviously another unverified rumor here that could just be somebody's speculation being posed as, oh, here's a, scoop for you. But this is why I wanted to make this video, exactly this kind of stuff, because it allows me to talk about things which, whether this is like an actual scoop or not, it's something that I could imagine happening. And that is that Booster Gold wouldn't actually, there wouldn't really be as much of a internal push to make that an HBO original, but rather it might just be a Max thing. It's like, hey, stream it on Max just like everything else, but we're not going to slap it with that pedigree label. All right, so number 3 is the two secret projects Gunn mentioned in the original announcement are Huntress and Plastic Man. Huntress being Gunn's favorite and the totally unique project that he couldn't talk about, and Plastic Man being the project with the director who could take his time to make. I don't remember, maybe this is surprising for me because my memory banks are like pretty good when it comes to what James Gunn has said, but I don't remember him saying in the announcement video like, oh yeah, by the way, boys, I've got 2 secret projects as well. Maybe it was more, I'm willing to bet it was maybe more said in like to the press, because I don't know how many of you remember, outside of that YouTube Chapter 1 Gods and Monsters video, he also spoke to Deadline, well, a bunch of press, when they had that little PowerPoint presentation, if you know what I mean, that was leaked. There was a photo of that I probably still can't show, but a lot of, obviously, journalists were there, and they recorded various other comments from Gunn or different ways of saying things, and maybe it was mentioned there. But yeah, the Huntress thing has been teased for a long time. A lot of us are thinking, is Pom Klementieff going to actually be in that kind of rumored Korean Huntress movie? I do feel like things like that will be announced at some point in time in the future. It's just not anything to rush out right now. Plastic Man's been a rumor for a long time as well, which does make sense, but again, isn't something that necessarily needs to be rushed, because what everyone needs to remember is that we've got a bunch of projects already mapped out for the first few years of the DCU. We don't need to hear about tons and tons and tons and tons of future things already, because think about it, right? We've got Creature Commandos, that's coming out in December. Then we've got Superman. Then we've got like Peacemaker Season 2 that's filming right now. That's going to release. We've got Lanterns filming possibly in January. That's going to be coming out. We've got Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow coming out the summer after next. Then we've got all of these other projects that were announced. We've got a Blue Beetle animated series that is pretty much, well, it's not confirmed by Gunn, but it's pretty much low-key confirmed by Shola Mardueña and other areas. We've got Booster Gold, we've got Swamp Thing, we've got the Authority movie, we've got so many more. Like, it's ridiculous, right? So to think about how, okay, we're now going to announce a Huntress thing. And sure, by the way, I am aware that some projects could be shuffled around just like they already have. So you could argue if the Huntress movie was, or show, whatever it's going to be, was announced out of nowhere, they might prioritize that well over Booster Gold and Swamp Thing, which are, in theory, a few years away. So I would never really discount something like that happening, but it's still unlikely, right? They've got a lot of projects they still need to achieve. Number 4 is the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker Season 1 are almost entirely canon, except for a few recasts and very minor inconsistencies. And Gunn has said that himself, at least on the latter there. like basically everything is being maintained apart from one or two minor things, which is something I've been saying for the longest time, because why not? Like, I don't see why the butterfly invasion would contradict anything canonical in the DCU. There's lots of things like that, except obviously the elephant in the room, the Justice League appearing, and maybe one or two other things they might have to, fix up with the canon going into the DCU. But as for like recasts, what recasts? Because I don't see why we wouldn't have Peacemaker's dad still in season 2. Harcourt's going to be there. We're going to have Steve Agee playing John Economos. I don't know what recast they're on about, because some of the other characters that appeared in season 1 died. So maybe I'm having a brain fart right now, but we're going to have to wait and see. But in fact, they are pretty much seen as unofficial DC projects internally and will be referenced heavily, I guess I meant to say, as official ones. Peacemaker Season 2 may or may not be subtitle. This is what I mean. Like, it's stuff like this. Like, what kind of... is that really a scoop? Because I guess I meant to say subtle, but it is making me question it. But either way, I have to remember, I'm here for the discussion. I don't have much to say about this one because I think it kind of speaks for itself. The Suicide Squad, Rick Flag Sr. and Creature Commandos. We've had Frank Grillo tease enough that he's kind of going after Peacemaker eventually. That's obviously because his son died in the Suicide Squad. That's a strand of canon that's being maintained. Obviously, this is stuff we basically already know. Number 5, they're saying DCU Aquaman will be in a similar place as we left him. Again, another misspelling there. Like, why is it so hard to spell? God, in the DC, it doesn't even say DCU, it says DEU, despite being recast. Unlike the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, only very broad strokes of Aquaman's story is carrying over, such as already being king, married to Mira with a son. So what I'll say here is, again, despite potentially the validity of some of these, is, again, I'm here to talk about these ideas. And this is something that is intriguing, because I think it's fairly obvious that Jason Momoa will not be reprising his role as Aquaman in the DCU. He will be Lobo. I think that's been teased enough. We can't forget about how he's already had meetings with David Zaslav, James Gunn. He was tagging them. He was audibly saying their names. He was saying thank you to them. And that was before Aquaman 2 was even out, in whatever this secret meeting was, and he was so ecstatic, over the moon. I think he basically got told about Lobo. This is nothing new. But it was just like, hey, don't mention that now. When the time comes, we'll get to that. But don't worry, we've got you after Aquaman is said and done. However, that left up in the air, like, where is Aquaman, or what is the status of him in the DCU? And I think for myself and maybe many other people, we assumed that he just wouldn't really be addressed, or he would be maybe a character in the background, right? Because this is a living, breathing DC universe, and where heroes exist and have existed for a long time. I mean, look at Batman. Superman's even been around for a few years. Hal Jordan is a lantern legend, so he's been doing it for a hot minute like Batman. And there's other heroes, but you can't get to everyone right away. So I just assume that Aquaman is out there at a certain point, already having been active as Aquaman. And I think, this is, going over number 5 here, probably something I agree with, whether we see it or not. I don't expect an Aquaman project being addressed, but as they say here, more or less where we left him off in Aquaman 2, it's like, okay, you're king, you're probably married to Mira, you have a son, and if and as of when we ever need to see Aquaman, we'll get to that when we get to that. But it won't be like an origin thing. This is like a big thing with the DCU anyway. Or while I'm sure we will get some origins, in the Dead Man show, I'm sure we'll get to see his death, his origin, and how he becomes Dead Man. I'm sure maybe in Booster Gold, even if we saw him before his own show, that show will still cover how he stole technology and came back to present day. And, here I am now. But mostly, this isn't going to be like Iron Man 1, hey, I'm Tony Stark, or like the Incredible Hulk kind of thing. Okay, now we're going into the next origin, Captain America kind of thing. Like, we're starting and hitting the ground running with a lot of characters, and Aquaman, I don't think will be any different there. All right, so number 6. This is something that always really intrigues me, and I would love to get you guys involved in this one. So they say the Justice League already existed in universe, and the Justice League International are coming sooner than people think. The Teen Titans also already existed, and the movie will be about the team being revived. really interesting stuff there. Again, I really don't really take any of these as a fact whatsoever, but I love the ideas because we often talk about this quite a bit with regards to the fact that you have Guy Gardner, Mr. Terrific, Hawkgirl in a superhero team that quite literally wear uniforms. Like, even in a lot of teams in the DC universe, you're not always wearing a uniform. In fact, more times than not, you're not really not doing that. I mean, look at the Justice League. You wear your own shit. Like, Batman's looking like Batman, Superman. You're not in a uniform. So we know they're in some kind of corporate team, similar to some of the source material there, like the conglomerate. Maxwell Lord's ex-wife made them to kind of really rally a lot of investors and corporations, without getting to that whole backstory. It is interesting to examine it because it's like, well, yeah, why aren't they in their own team like a Justice League where they don't have to wear uniforms? Why are they wearing one in where there's signs over Metropolis saying we sell products from Samsung, Lord Tech, and it has that little JL logo for Lord Tech. So that is like a company run by Maxwell Lord. They sell tech, they sell products, and you have heroes in Maxwell Lord's logo and uniform suit. So is there a Justice League actually out there right now? I've never been able to really slam down the gavel there and be like, yes, I decree, in my opinion, there is. Because why would they be wearing this and be working with Maxwell? Like, sure, you could say Maxwell Lord is like rallying together a team, and he's like trying to help out there. But he could still do that without having to be, implementing his own company logo on there. So that's what has made a lot of us I've kind of resigned myself to think that this is the Reverse Kingdom Come somewhat influence. Now, in a Reverse Kingdom Come storyline, it's not like you had the conglomerate and sponsored corporations, corporate hero teams rather, but it's like how... The reason why I say Reverse Kingdom Come is because this world is already used to metahumans. Like, they've been here for potentially decades and decades and decades. People have acclimated to it. Government has acclimated to it. Military are used to seeing this. And so you have team-ups for military, possibly the engineer, before the authority is even made. You have some corporations, like Maxwell Lord's here, creating a team, and Maxwell Lord could be very helpful here. He's not always diabolical or like super shady, but obviously he has his own interest here because through helping out heroes and bringing them together, he could also have the self-interest of, like, this will also help out Lord Tech quite a bit. I mean, oh my god, kind of thing. I think it will be a bit of a commentary on that, right? The publicized aspects, much like how many people were talking about with The Boys. But this isn't copying The Boys as much as people say that, because, again, the source material has been doing this for, yes, decades, long before we've had The Boys TV show or whatever you want to say. So again, I know I went on a bit of a rant now or like a tangent, but this all comes back around to the Justice League, because what happened, or like what is the case with them? Why would there be a Justice League separate to that of what this corporate team is with, Guy Gardner, Hawkgirl, and Mr. Terrific? And that's, again, the more I asked myself that question, I was like, is there even a Justice League as of right now? And maybe there will be, because Superman, again, we can't forget the original title, Superman Legacy. I think his very individuality with his own costume, not being a part of another team out there, is what the original title was about. He's going to inspire other superheroes to have their own superhero autonomy, be themselves. You don't have to be in this corporate team wearing a uniform, like, really? And then maybe we'll get back to the Justice League. But yes, like number 6 initially says here, the Justice League could have actually existed, because another thing I want to say is that's something I really do believe that they could go on to do, or even a Justice Society. Maybe the Justice Society decades and decades ago inspired Clark Kent, Superman, to actually not be like what he's seeing some other heroes be like out there in the world, right? So maybe there even was a Justice League. It got disbanded for one reason or another, but it will reignite again. Maybe, Maxwell Lord will step aside, or like Hawkgirl and Guy Gardner and whatnot will step aside from Lord Tech's uniform team, and Batman could come in and be like, hey, I can kind of use, I don't know if he would divulge that, hey, I can use my Wayne Enterprises stuff, but like, hey, let's start up the Justice League. There's all kinds of ways you can go with this, but I don't think any of us can say stuff as like a factual statement whatsoever. There's a lot of fluidity and stuff that they can do to adapt a whole bunch of things. As you guys know, when things are brought to fruition in live action, even from those like James Gunn who really love the comics, and he's demonstrated his knowledge on that quite a bit, you still want to innovate, right? And you innovate sometimes with drawing threads from all kinds of different inspirations from the source material. So like, here's the conglomerate, here's a bit of Justice League International inspiration, not so much the actual team, but Maxwell Lord organizing something, right? So you've got two threads that you got to, tie a knot in there. And now you've got like a new kind of iteration you can bring into live action. And that's what you have here. And you've got another inspiration there. You've got another with Reverse Kingdom Come, or like Kingdom Come, but let's make it reverse and tie that in here. Let's start the DCU with heroes already having existed for a long time. Like, there's lots of things, and that's how you get something new. So it's very hard to decipher what is truly going on. But I am so damn intrigued with the status of the Justice League, because we know Batman's been out there for a while. We know Hal Jordan's been out there for a long while. So things like that could imply there's been a team up before, but maybe the environment or the status quo of the DC Universe did change, and maybe Batman just kind of was like, right, I'm going to lock in on my own vigilante activities, and Hal Jordan was like, okay, well, I'm going to just, concentrate on being my Precinct Earth kind of detective self in this series that we're going to get onto. And maybe Superman disrupts all of this and brings back a bit of hope for like the superhero world side of things. I could keep rambling about this one forever, but otherwise this video is going to be like 50 minutes long, or maybe it already is. But the Teen Titans also already existed. And the movie that is being written by Anna Nogueira, also the Hollywood Reporter claim, will be about the team being revived. That sounds very DC Universe Titans to me, and how they once took a stab at it, but after Aqualad died, they kind of disbanded. But then when season 1 starts, you have Dick Grayson come across Raven, and he basically starts it up again. I would like that, because if Damian Wayne's coming along, I have to assume that Dick Grayson is Nightwing at this point. And when he was younger, he could have already had a little Teen Titans team, right? Maybe he was running around with like Wonder Girl and everyone like that. Again, similar to Titans, where you had Wonder Girl being played by Connor Leslie. An absolutely amazing casting, by the way. Say what you will about Titans, but the casting was fantastic. And maybe they're going to do like an adult Titans. There's so many theories about what that rumored Titans project could be, because it's really like, okay, well, we also have Damian Wayne coming in the Brave and the Bold. So if the Titans project comes after the Brave and the Bold Batman movie, would Damian Wayne be in it? But Damian Wayne's going to be really young. So is there like an adult Titans group that's being led by Dick Grayson, and you have some of the OG members in there, but Damian Wayne starts his own Teen Titans group with some of the other... We really don't know how that's going to come to fruition, but this is claiming that there was a Teen Titans that already existed, and this will be about them being revived. So does that mean that Nightwing would still be leading them if he's much older than being a Teen Titan? Maybe not, but I would personally really want a Titans project to still have Nightwing as the leader in the DCU. But if it's a Teen Titans movie, would it really be that? Like, because he would be leading the adult Titans. So I really don't know if they're going to do a Titans movie where that's actually not so much the case, and you're going to have Damian Wayne lead it, and you're actually going to have younger heroes. But I'm a bit biased, because I really want, Nightwing, Starfire, Kid Flash in there, Cyborg, but maybe since this universe has been operating for a bit, I wouldn't mind seeing them, because again, Nightwing sometimes becomes Nightwing, Dick Grayson becomes Nightwing at like, anywhere from like 18 to 21, 22, so he would still be really young if they cast an actor who was actually around 20 years old. And that would be really cool to me. Instead of like getting Brenton Thwaites, who looks great as Robin and Nightwing, by the way. But we all know they did that thing where, hey, like, they're grown-ass adults. They're like in their late 20s, early 30s, mid-30s even for some of them. No, actually cast a 21-year-old Nightwing. It would make so much sense for the source material and comic accuracy, and that's personally what I want this project to be. And if they got revived, that'd be dope. It really would, because I can imagine Dick Grayson having been in the Titans when he was in Robin mode several years before this. So as for number 7, not expect So to not expect the chapters to look like Marvel's phases, or for the DCU to plan as many sequels to their projects, Gunn is serious about ensuring quality of writing so sequels will not exist just for the sake of it. Each chapter runs about 5 years, making sure each project can truly work as a standalone while also fitting into the larger DCU storyline is a huge priority. This is one of the reasons there won't be as many true sequels. I think that, again, this is another one that could have just been kind of made up because it's stuff that we've heard before. I think it's something that is partially true. While, like, I can't guarantee if there will be sequels or if there won't be. That is actually something I've said myself. I've always been asked, like, hey, Boba, do you think, like, there will be a sequel to Superman? Or, like, I've always answered it in a way where it's like, I don't think it will be done in the way of, like, okay, there's Iron Man 1, Iron Man 2, Iron Man 3. Do you know what I mean? I've always started off with that. I've always then said, I think the DCU is going to be more like how, you know how you have the Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire, right? And you have all of these huge characters, like, Jon Snow to Daenerys to Littlefinger to Ned Stark to other, like, lots of huge characters, so many main characters, but it's still all a part of the Song of Ice and Fire book. That's the way, as those books unfold, I would kind of look at the way Gunn is doing the DCU, instead of just being like, okay, David Corenswet's Superman, as we're starting off with in a DCU, technically, after Creature Commandos. I don't think it would be like, Superman 2, The Man of Tomorrow, like, necessarily. I think all of these characters, it doesn't mean that Corenswet won't be a main character, and it doesn't even mean that there won't be a sequel in a way. It's just the approach to it is that whatever is in service of helping ensure quality and the main overarching story and just serving the characters in each respective project, that's the main priority here. And each character, sure, you may prefer some over others, whatever floats your boat, right? You might be more of a Superman or Batman fan over something else, but each one of them are going to be kind of respective main characters in this overarching tapestry that is unfolding. So I can't really, accurately or confidently say, okay, yeah, you're going to get this sequel. You're going to get like a DCU Batman movie 2. Not really. And I don't even think it's going to maintain the title like The Brave and the Bold. It hasn't even got freaking Batman in the title. That's terrible for marketing. It will probably be called Batman, The Brave and the Bold, or something like that. But my point is, what I liked about it, even once upon a time, Superman Legacy was the title. You have The Brave and the Bold. Like, these are, storytelling projects first and foremost about these characters, rather than being like, okay, we're gonna do this and number 2 and then we're gonna do number 3. I think it's more, I feel like I'm saying the same thing at this point, but Gunn has articulated quite a lot about this as well. I don't think they're going to be doing things for the sake of it. They're going to make things cohesive. You don't have to have sequels to be cohesive when telling your main overarching story in the DCU. So I do think they are making sure that each project can work as a standalone, even though it obviously has connective tissues to it. It's like how you could view, right, the Batman movie as a standalone, even with the way it ends, but you could easily pick up where it left off. The same thing with Superman. I'm sure it would be like, okay, you could, like, this is still a self-contained standalone story where we're, like, only really caring about this, more so than anything else. Not saying it won't have world building in it, but you get what I'm trying to say. But it will still feel like a story. Lanterns is very important to their overarching story in the DCU, as said by both co-CEOs. But I'm sure that will feel very much so like a self-contained story about Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart being space cops on Precinct Earth. Again, want to stress, this doesn't mean that we're not going to get sequels. It's just, I don't think it's going to be as formulaic as what we've had or seen in other cinematic universes. So number 8, one of the reasons the Authority is taking so long is that they're very picky about the director, because Gunn may hand Superman 2 to them as well. Superman 2, funnily enough, having just spoken about sequels, will not be Superman versus the Authority. It's planned as a Superman and Authority team-up and features Warworld. It won't be coming out until Chapter 2. That would be pretty dope, I'm not gonna lie. Because, again, I have this whole theory, again, hypothetically entertaining, that number 7 here is, or number 8, rather, is true, is because I think that the engineer going after Superman in this movie, trying to apprehend him, is under false pretenses. She'll realize at a certain point, and potentially that black-suited figure, whatever the hell's going on with that, or maybe he's working independently from the engineer, but still, is seen with her at times. But as for the engineer, she's being used, and by the end of the movie, she might be like, oh, Superman isn't the bad guy. We know she's not a villain in the comics. The Authority team aren't. They're more just anti-heroes getting the job done by any means necessary. So kind of look at the boys in the Boys series. You wouldn't say Huey's a villain. You wouldn't traditionally say that Butcher's a villain, or MM, or Frenchie, or Kimiko, right? Or Starlight. But, they do a lot of things that Superman or other heroes wouldn't do. It's not so much the moral compass that they have. So they're not villains. That's the main thing. So I can imagine them going on to do a bit of a Superman and the Authority source material influence thing, in where you have Superman, funnily enough, with a very similar symbol that he's wearing in this James Gunn Superman movie, working alongside them. And Warworld coming into play would be quite a, formidable threat, to say the least. And, we've actually covered Warworld before, and Mongol, with regards to my video, which you should definitely check out. It's about the 10 or, I don't know, top big bads that could actually be a big bad in the DCU Chapter 1 or Chapter 2. But not to the point of where I don't think it would be Superman versus the Authority. There might be like some head-butting in whatever this project would be, but I don't think they're going to waste time in being like, okay, now Corin Sweat Superman's going to fight them. Now, I think they're doing like a mini kind of dose of that in the movie already, with just the engineer going after him. But then there will be a bit of a newfound respect between Superman and the engineer by the ending events of the movie. So when Superman maybe teams up with the Authority to take on Warworld, and maybe God knows how many other characters could be involved in that, because God, this is Warworld we're talking about. They already know of each other, right? Technically, the engineer would be another metahuman compatriot to that of Clark in the DCU, having already run into her quite a bit. So number 9, though, we need to move on here. DCU Arkham has been put on hold until after work on The Brave and the Bold is underway. The SEV, I guess that means dev, as in development, was more of an anthology masquerading as a Clayface movie, unlike Antonio Campos's version. So, yes, what is interesting is we had Gunn in December of 2023, which, wasn't like ages and ages and ages ago, say to us that there is a DCU Arkham show. He wasn't sure of what permutations it went through before that time. As far as he's concerned, it's always been a DCU Arkham series. In fact, it was one of the very first pitches that they picked up when they joined DC and created DC Studios. So Matt Reeves would have pitched that to him. It was a DCU project. But then we heard rumors or like actual articles saying that it was dead, right? But I was always a bit iffy on it because it never really made sense to me, because I can't remember if it was Deadline or Variety or wherever, but they were kind of talking about the Antonio Campos Arkham Asylum Batverse version, and then they kind of just added later on in the article that, hey, but James Gunn did say in December that the show was still alive, and they kind of conflate both information together, as if like it was the same thing. But the thing is, James Gunn never said it was still alive, because he made a clear distinction saying that it, the Batverse version didn't kind of transform into the DCU version. And yet the article writer version implied that to be the case. So all I'm trying to say is it was such murky waters with whatever the truth is. But funnily enough, what wavered my confidence in, it being dead was that James Gunn would have absolutely 10,000% by now seen lots of people, including myself, asking about, okay, so what's going on with the Arkham series? You tweeted or like posted posts about it more than enough several months ago, and now there's a major trade saying this. Gunn would definitely notice that, and he didn't reply, not even once. That is very sussy, like, I'm not gonna lie. So I don't, like, even if it was put on hold, though, like, surely he would have just been like, it's not like it's cancelled. It's just, we've got a lot of things juggling over here in the DCU. I'm not going to say too much, but, we kind of maybe want to do the Brave and the Bold first before the Arkham DCU series. So, it's just not, like, properly shelved in a sense that it will never be picked up again, but it's just put on hold for, like, while we concentrate on these other things. Like, he could have said that, and that doesn't give away a lot at all. Like, he said other things to fans that divulge a lot more information than that. So I don't get why he couldn't have even said that. So this number 9 saying that it's put on hold until after Brave and the Bold is underway, I guess we're just not going to know until we know. But then it also says that it was more of an anthology masquerading as a Clayface movie. I guess you could say, I don't know about that being true. Like, Gunn addressed it as a series. I don't think he would lie as in a masquerading sense. I guess you could argue that the Arkham show could have been about Clayface being sent to Arkham and then, like, us going along with him in his experience with that. I'm not sure. This could link to the Mike Flanagan stuff. There is, I do think where there's smoke, there's fire. I think there was definitely stuff going on behind the scenes, whether it's Batverse or DCU related with Mike Flanagan. Number 10 says, the final movie of Chapter 1 isn't a New Frontier movie per se, so maybe this is going back to Rumours of the Center, maybe. Rather, the entirety of Chapter 1 can be seen as a sort of loose modern-day adaptation of The New Frontier. This big film that will serve as the finale to the chapter will be far more ambitious than a simple superhero team-up like a 5-man Justice League or 6-man Avengers, which is why word is that Gunn will be writing and directing it himself. I would believe that, by the way, if they were doing something like this. And I think, just to interject here, I do think at the end of a chapter, there will be kind of like an Avengers level movie or a Justice League type movie or a New Frontier, as they're saying here. I do think Gunn would want to handle that personally, but it will feature several factions and lots of characters, likely more than Gunn has ever written for a project, but the Trinity will be the leads. Now, I know some people will be like, I think it could be a mistake waiting for the Trinity to be leads of something up until that point. There's been like an ongoing commentary for a couple of years now, well, a year, well, almost 2 years. That's not to say that we won't see the Trinity in the project before this big final Chapter 1 movie. But this is something I do believe. I don't know about Justice League The New Frontier, but you never know. The essence of that and the amount of characters in that story and the kind of threat that they're facing, even if it's just influenced, is something I am kind of half expecting. Because it's like a no-brainer to do something quite ambitious after that many projects, with roughly, as Peter Safran said, 2 DCU series and movies a year. If that's like 4 a year, you times that by 5, boom, 20 projects. That makes sense with roughly what James Gunn said, with how what was announced as of January 2023 was roughly less than half of what is going to be going into Chapter 1, which makes it around 20, 21, 22. Do you see what I mean? So it's all kind of making sense in how Chapter 1, over 5 years, it's an 8 to 10 year plan, so let's just say 10, 40-ish plus projects, but after 20-ish projects, after 5 years, you'll get like a Chapter 1 kind of New Frontier. I mean, think about how much development you would have had there. 4 projects a year, all these characters introduced. A universe that already has a lot of characters that might not even get their own project, or some might just appear as characters in other projects. There's so much that they can play with in the sandbox of the DC universe they're creating. But even if it isn't the center, which kind of threat in the DCU, out of all the big bads out there, realistically speaking, after 20-ish projects, after 4 or 5 years, would you want the Chapter 1 closing project to be in this ensemble-esque thing? Like, which threat would you want all these characters to go up against? And I say realistically, review over 5 years who it would be. So don't think like necessarily, I don't know, Darkseid or anything like that, because you know my thoughts on that. We're not going to go there after basically that was being geared up in the DCEU. So who do you think it will be? Number 11, The Wonder Twins is an animated project and was likely delayed. The last thing I heard about a Wonder Twins thing was like that KJ Apa movie, like in the time of where, like this was like the time of where we were going to get the Batgirl movie, and there was going to be like a Keaton Batman movie after that, and there was going to be like the post-continuity after the Flash film where we would have got a Supergirl or Sasha Calle's Supergirl carrying on, and But I don't know about this one. I don't know if it's like old rumors being repurposed. Then number 12, by 2028, the DCU will have an output of 3 films per year and 1, at most 2, major Elseworlds release per year. Interesting. I mean, that is something that is, I suppose, fluid. We do know that they're trying to aim for like 2 movies a year and 2 shows, as I said earlier, as per what Safran said, because they don't want to rush out the products that they make. Gunn said that as well. But you could argue that they could perfect the formula a bit of whatever they want to do and maybe increase the output, but you also don't want to oversaturate. Elseworlds is kind of believable because they have such a high bar. And, you know, with the success of the Batman, and let's just, assume that the Batman 2 will be doing well, it's kind of like, you know, and after Joker, and let's just say even Joker 2 is north of $700 million if we're lucky. You could be like, okay, yeah, why not do something else really cool and then something else really cool? Because you can, with Elseworlds projects, if you're not, or even if you're a fan of some things more than others within the cinematic universe side of things with the DCU, you always know that an Elseworlds project can go like super R-rated, a super different tone. They can really go balls to the wall with a character being taken to a place where you really didn't think they would go, kind of thing. You know, I remember after Joker, people were like, oh yeah, I want a Deathstroke, character study movie. I want a Lex Luthor kind of one, or whatever. Like, imagine the potential with future Elseworlds. I know they're working on, currently, technically, there are a couple still alive. We have the Keanu Reeves Constantine sequel still being written. And we have the J.J. Abrams Bad Robot Productions Black Superman movie, which Gunn himself even acknowledged is still in active development, although hasn't been greenlit. Do you know what I mean? We're going to have to wait and see what the future holds. But as for the output, who knows where things will go. I still think they're going to try and get 2 films out a year in terms of mainline DCU. So guys, with that being said, I know a lot of these posts in this section could be BS, but it's still like what I've found about it is like, based on stuff that is really intriguing to talk about with like interesting factors of the upcoming DCU, it opens up many branches of discussion that you guys can definitely get involved in. Some of this could even come to fruition, which is something which is always interesting to consider. So with that being said and done, I think I'm just going to leave the floor open to you. Let's expand on this. Can't wait to see what you guys have to say. There is, what I love making most about these videos is, I'm already optimistic about the DCU's beginning and want to see it succeed. But there are so many, it's kind of the thing where more questions or answers we get, the more questions we have. Like, okay, what about the Justice League? Did they already exist in this DCU that's already had heroes in it for quite a long time? There's already more questions that unravel with that. What about the Titans? What about this character? What about that character? What about these projects? What about the big movie at the end of Chapter 1? So, guys, spew away down in the comments below. Like this video if you enjoyed it, especially if you got this far. Consider subscribing. And actually, something I haven't done in freaking forever is, if you got this far, prove it by typing alongside whatever you would post down in the comments anyway. Hashtag James Gunn's gonna have a lot of fun. I don't know. It's off the top of my head, but it'll be funny to see how many of you actually post that. But again, love you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see all of you people of the DCU in the next video. Goodbye.